Hey guys. So, I went to a lot of trouble to try and do a recording today. Yesterday, when I did a reading that I was going to post, the file got corrupted, and I pretty much wasted my entire day trying to figure it out. On top of doing all the work that went into doing the reading in the first place, it was pretty detailed. And then today, when I had made plans to do another reading, another recording, and also do a recording just to paraphrase and explain the energy that came up in the previous reading that I just done that I couldn't post. A bunch of stuff came up again, and it looks like my plans are gonna be completely upended for the rest of the week. So I don't know. I'm just focusing on getting at least this accomplished, so I can just put the main points out there, what showed up in the reading, in case anyone is interested in that. And I'm gonna try to keep it to the point a little bit, because it can be a little nebulous. I was up super early in the morning at 4 a.m. with a bunch of freaking downloads and stuff, and I just kind of want this to be over with, to be honest. But a lot of it got tied together, you know, the following night after I wasn't able to get it posted, so maybe there's something to be gleaned from that. So without further ado, the major points that showed up in the reading is that the masculine energy. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about the masculine counterpart, but also just masculine energy in general, the feminine's masculine energy, and vice versa, in regards to the feminine energy. So the masculine energy is kind of being sandwiched in a lot of factors right now. There's a lot of pressure and a lot of things being kicked up. Those factors are, the presence of death and of the need to just be done with and consume the old cycle. And when I say consume, I mean that it's almost like a fertilizer concept, where all the structures and things belonging to the old cycle, whatever those are, whatever those mean to you, are being broken down, almost like one would, look at the natural cycle of things, where something dies and then it gets broken down and then new life kind of forms around that. It's almost like a seed. And so that's what's happening. And on top of that, we also have this really fun, I guess, but dynamic fire energy that's coming up. I want to say from the earth, because every time I try to do a reading on it and the way that it's been shown to me, it's something that comes up through the base chakras, and it's like a rising energy. And so it's an energy of sacred fire, which can go a lot of different ways, and it's Mars energy, because, and I'm calling it Mars energy because it seems to be something that's both based in passion, anger, and all those kinds of things, like fury, things that make you furious. It reminded me a lot of a poem that I was listening to on a podcast recently, where there was a person that was describing their lover, and amongst all this, flowery language that they were using to describe this person, they said that that person made them furious. And I really liked that word usage, because it pretty much sums up that, just that pure, fire energy, where it can go a lot of different ways and doesn't necessarily have to be angry, but it is something that cannot be easily contained. It supports and ignites one to take action. It's one's energy in Suit Tarot. King of Wands energy, Queen of Wands energy, Ace of Wands, whatever, Eight of Wands specifically. It's driving people to action, but there's also another factor here where there's this piece about emotional truth, which was coming up really strongly. And the emotional truth within us wanted to be seen as a manifestation of the inner child. And the fire energy that's sort of rising up is forcing that out of us, where if there's any kind of repression going on, repression of emotional truth, which showed up specifically around the masculine energy, that's being pushed up, it's being kicked around, it's being forcibly processed. So anyone that's struggling against that is going to have a heck of a time. But I imagine that all of us are struggling with it any number of ways. The other thing that came up is the communication between counterparts, and I'm talking specifically, like, mostly about counterparts that are, like, kind of teetering on the edge of their unions, because that's the energy that I'm in, and I'm not really aware too much, or trying even to feed into, or pull in any other kind of energy. Although I'm sure there's messages, that'll apply to different people, regardless. But anyway, to get back to what I was talking about, the conversations that are going on right now are about subjects that are going to prepare you to go into union. So whatever topics are coming up right now, this is stuff that needs to be processed. And I'll get into another thing that's a little bit more abstract, but before I switch the subject again, there's this whole concept of venting, and there's healthy ways to vent, what's going on with you, and to sort of expel and express this fiery energy, to expel and express, inner truth and things like that. So I'm imagining that right now there's a lot of venting that's going on between partners, and it's not necessarily that they're complaining about each other or getting into arguments. You may just feel like you need to talk about stuff. You might be talking about difficult subjects, or you might having difficult talks, having difficult talks about, difficult subjects. It really depends on where you're at and your level of, emotional clarity. And that seems to be the key here, is emotional clarity. And there's actually kind of a mechanical reason for that, because when we do go into these unions, and I'm talking specifically about the sexual union, because that's where kind of the fireworks happen. I don't mean, in a funny way. It's more like this magical exchange, where if your heart isn't in a state where it's extremely open and can handle accessing higher states of consciousness and things like that, then well, I don't really know what's going to happen in those situations, but I know that that's not ideal, and it's not going to be, there's not a lot of stuff that's going to come to fruition that could come to fruition if both parties were, I want to say, open-hearted. And that's, being able to handle all of their emotional truths and deal with them and be conscious about them. Because we're not just talking about, like, venting shit at each other, like, randomly. There's a conscious way to deal with all of your emotions, regardless of what they are. Even if it's expressing it strongly. And I'm saying that as someone who has, like, Mars and Capricorn, so I know that's, like, a little bit easy for me to say, and a lot of people might be having much more difficulty with that. But, there is a way. It does take work, but there is a way. And getting back to the nuts and bolts of the hard stuff, I've had enough out-of-body experiences to tell you that in order to access, those kinds of states, and to access, like, higher consciousness in different parts of yourself like that, it all pretty much revolves around your heart. Your consciousness tends to switch to your heart, and your mind tends to go in the background a little bit. So that's why I think it's really of utmost importance. Just and again, I'm going to use the word in a mechanical sense, because I think people tend to not take this seriously because they think it's an emotional thing, especially the masculine energy, to not take emotional stuff seriously, or to just be so unused to it that it's easier not to. But it really does come down to capability, and if you don't have the capability to enter into these contracts, these unions, then you're kind of spinning your wheels in your ascension cycle. And there's a lot of push and pull. It's just really not going to get you anywhere. You know, you can think about stuff as hard as you want, but until you deal with your emotions, you're not getting it. And I think I kind of beat a dead horse on that far enough. So, what do I want to talk about next? Just really how this is all connected, how all this is getting sandwiched together, and how the inner child has all these manifestations in like our emotions and this sort of fiery energy, and also in the upcoming sort of floodgate opening energy that's going to happen after the union, where it's just going to be all of this creativity, and whatever you two are going to create, it's going to be massive, and there's going to be a lot of it, and it's going to be really hard to handle. So if you cannot handle this energy that's rising up now together in a focused way, you're not going to be able to handle what's coming up next. I mean, I promise you that, because every time I do a reading on this, for myself or anyone else, it's like the floodgates are going to open. There's going to be all of this stuff happening. There's going to be all this driving force, and you're going to need to be able to channel your fire energy into that, or you're not going to be able to handle it. You know, everything that you're kind of dreaming of doing and everything that you want, it's not really going to happen. And it's hard for me to describe like how strongly I get the sense of that, because when something shows up in every reading and it shows up exactly the same way, you just know, you know. And I think that anyone that's doubting that at this time, will get ready to be surprised by that. I know I'm excited and also a little bit scared, because I can feel the massiveness of it. And I also want to talk about the feminine energy, because this is kind of bringing me to that point. The feminine energy is much more in tune to what's going on invisibly, and what's going on with the guides and the spirit world and whatnot. Those are participating with us. They're setting up the influx of all of this new energy. And so there's this coming and going that's happening at the same time, where we have all this energy that's dying and sort of being consumed and being broken down. But at the same time, energetically, you know, we're being prepared for what's incoming. And so there's a lot of disruption that's happening in that. And also, while I'm on that subject, I'm going to tell you right now that the energy for the sexual union is already here. And some people are already feeling it, because if you've dealt with energy or cards or any kind of divination or whatever, you should be well aware that the energy for something is present sometimes well before it actually occurs. It really depends on what it is. But for a lot of people, the energy for that is already here, and you're already feeling it. And it's coming across like, because you're already feeling the energy, it's actually lining you up with it in advance. It's almost like, sorry, I just got like a visual, because I was seeing like an infinity loop. Like on one end you have the event, and then it's kind of looping back to the energy you're feeling now, and kind of forming this loop of energy. So I would, if you are feeling that and you are feeling like the energy is already with you, I would pay attention to whatever feels like it's lining you up or is an alignment issue. And pretty much anything that's being kicked up specifically at this time, pay attention to it. And I really can't tell you how to handle your individual situation. I wouldn't dream of it. But this is a time to pay very close attention to your own intuition, your own feeling about something and your knowingness, because that should be very clear for you at this time if you're attuned into your feminine energy. Now, if you're more tuned into masculine energy, you're probably feeling a lot more disrupted. It depends on where that's at for you. Let me think if there's anything else I want to talk about. Oh, okay, so when I was up at 4 a.m., I was given some kind of, I don't want to call it instructions because that sounds kind of weirdo, but um, I had this idea about this meditation that it's supposed to better channel that this fire energy that you're feeling and the inner child stuff and have it kind of all sink into one. It's meditation regarding the I am, which those are very powerful words if you know how to use them. Really, really good for this kind of thing. You're really centering yourself and just feeling like your true essence, and especially if we're tapping into the emotional truth piece. But anyway, so how it should go is what you're going to do is you're going to say the I am out loud, whatever, it doesn't matter. And as you do that, you're going to feel all of your energy and kind of pull it into yourself into like the smallest, speck that you can. Like just absolutely pull all of your energy in. And then when you feel like you've done that, then say the I am again. And this time you want to let all of your energy, whatever you feel that is, flow out. And it's either going to feel like a release or it's going to feel like a connection. It might feel like both. It might go either or. As you do this, and you can do this with your breathing if you like. It doesn't really matter. But I tried it a little bit earlier, and it was super effective. I kind of felt like a wave of it. It was really strong, and I don't know if anyone's actually going to do this, but in case it helps one person, if you think that sounds cool or just something interesting, go ahead and try it. I'm definitely going to try it. And with that, I think I'm going to conclude this. I have no freaking clue if I'm going to be, quote unquote, allowed to do any more readings. But if I do, I guess I'll see you guys again. And just good luck with all this, I'm pretty sure everything's going to be okay, even if sometimes it doesn't feel like it. All right, signing out.